Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré, has ordered the destruction of Bill Gates' genetically modified mosquitoes. Yes, guys, these are not rumors, just facts on facts. Traoré's government has suspended and dismantled the Target Malaria Project, a $1 million initiative, which is heavily funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Open Philanthropy. He has said that every lab sample needs to be destroyed and every field test stopped. And I know, guys, you want me to go straight to the contraceptive story. I know we will go right there, but let's first finish with what these mosquitoes really are. Now, in simple terms, scientists went into the DNA of one of the deadliest mosquitoes in Africa. This is Anopheles colusi, and rewired them so that when they mate, most of the babies would be male. And obviously, because only females bite and spread malaria, the idea was clear. You shrink the number of females and then you shrink the spread of malaria. Up to that point, it sounds like a very clever trick, a very neat modern fix for an ancient disease, right? Malaria. But to many Africans, it immediately raises a red flag. Why? Because anything that is genetically modified on African soil causes a heavy weight of history, suspicion, and betrayal. And here's the question nobody wants to answer. And these are the details that are always hidden when you hear about these projects, right? Where was this DNA work really conducted? Was it in African labs? We can imagine maybe in Burkina Faso, Mali, Uganda, Kenya, or Ghana. No. The genetic modification itself, the actual DNA editing, was carried out in high-end laboratories in Europe. We are talking about the Imperial College in London, UK, right? Now, Imperial College is not just your ordinary college. This is the lead institution of the Target Malaria Consortium and holds the key patents and intellectual property. Mark those words, guys, key patents and intellectual property. And this is exactly why African scientists and activists argue about ownership. The most advanced work, that is the DNA editing, the patents, and the intellectual property, will sit in London and other Western labs, right? But African institutions are tasked with rearing, monitoring, and releasing, but they don't control the core science, right? Red flag already? Definitely, Africans are not against science. They are not against innovation. What they are against is being used as the front line for experiments whose long-term consequences nobody can fully predict. Take food, for example. Let's go there. Genetically modified maize and cotton have been pushed into African markets and soils for years. They came with the promise of higher yields, pest resistance, and economic freedom. But the reality tells another story. In South Africa, the only African country that has fully commercialized genetically modified crops, over 85% of all maize and nearly 100% of cotton grown is genetically engineered. Multinationals like Monsanto, now Bayer, Syngenta, and Corteva Agriscience, they dominate the seed market. Are those Africans? Are those Africans companies, industries? No. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying today's episode, and I just want to take a moment and talk to you about our sponsors. That is TapTapSend. So if you're watching this from diaspora and you want to send money to your loved ones back home for any purpose, then why don't you try TapTap? They are very fast, reliable, and they also have great rates for you, and you can always trust them to make sure that your money gets to where it needs to be at the right time. But if you're thinking of investing in a piece of land, then this is a perfect opportunity to remind you of our other partners. Hekalu, they have great pieces of land around Konza Technopolis. And guys, if you remember, just the other day we brought you an entire episode on that, and that project is sold out. But worry not, we launched another one just the other day, and it's close to Mombasa Road. You guys, you get to have water, you saw the boreholes and amazing roads, there's electricity, and their details are on the screen. So if you're looking into investing in a piece of land, check out Hekalu and always let me know how that goes. Now let's go back and continue with our episode today. Farmers are required to buy new seed every planting season because patented GMO seeds are legally protected. So the result, you have smallhold farmers pay up to 5 times more for GMO seed compared to traditional varieties. Is that advancing all Africa, or it's definitely food colonizing us? By 2012, Monsanto alone was making over $2.4 billion annually from seed sales in Africa. Much of it definitely from South Africa's maize and cotton markets. Meanwhile, as we said, small farmers report being trapped in debt cycles. They will have to buy expensive seeds. Then you are being forced to purchase companion chemicals like glyphosate. You know, the roundups, we have had that conversation on the platform before. They introduce the seed and then they make sure that they're introducing the pesticides, but they make sure that they are the ones selling the same to you. So the promise of pest resistance also begins to collapse. Bollworms, the very pest, BT cotton, very famous. BT cotton is very famous in South Africa and Burkina Faso. The very pest, BT cotton, was engineered to resist, developed resistance with just a few years. So by 2013, the South African Cotton Federation, 2013, South African Cotton Federation admitted that yields of BT cotton had dropped so badly that farmers were abandoning it. In Burkina Faso, where BT cotton was introduced with heavy support from who again? Monsanto and the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, fiber quality deteriorated so much that the country's entire cotton sector, which was the pride of Burkina Faso, guys, cotton was the pride of Burkina Faso, suffered international rejection. By 2016, Burkina Faso's government officially abandoned GMO cotton, citing economic losses and reputation damage. No one wants to buy cotton from us anymore. The loss was huge. Cotton accounted for 60% of Burkina Faso's export earnings, and farmers lost millions of dollars in global market value. Let that sink in. Can you imagine a country where cotton is your pride, and then being forced to adapt the GMO, and then this GMO backfires so much that your country's produce is even internationally rejected? Let's take a look at biodiversity because it took another hit. Studies in South Africa showed that the expansion of GMO maize displaced indigenous varieties, eroding traditional seed diversity that farmers had relied on for centuries. Once replaced by patented hybrids, those local varieties disappear, leaving farmers dependent on corporate seed banks. Again, are you advancing Africa? If we have to depend on your corporate seed banks, and these corporates are not Africans but international, who is benefiting? And definitely behind this whole GMO push are not just the seed giants, the Monsanto, the Bayers, etc., etc. You have philanthropies such as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, who are going to pour billions and billions of dollars into modernizing African agriculture. Guys, what was wrong with our traditional African methods? This whole theory of us modernizing African agriculture is the reason we are going through food insecurity. It's the reason we have all these food problems in our continent, right? But then I love the fact that you have people who are evaluating these things, because independent evaluations show AGRA has failed significantly to increase yields or reduce hunger in the 13 countries where it operates. So instead, it has deepened dependence on imported seeds and fertilizers while crowding out local seed systems. In 2020, there was a major review by Tufts Global Development and Environmental Institute that concluded AGRA had not reduced hunger levels in Africa, despite nearly $1 billion in donor funding. But they will still have pesticide use skyrocketing. In Ghana and Nigeria, pesticide imports doubled between 2010 and 2020, actually more than doubled. In South Africa, herbicide-resistant GM maize has locked farmers into glyphosate, right? So you have farmers who are depending on glyphosate, but then again, who sells glyphosate? This is not an African company. It's not even a South African or a Nigerian company, right? So once again, you have people not only going through seed dependency, but pesticide dependency, right? But this is the reason our memory cannot fail us anymore, because you have results that can be measured. You have farmers who are trapped in cycles of expensive seed and chemical purchase. And then the things that they were promised would resist are definitely not resisting. So you wonder, what is the purpose of this whole technology? What is the purpose of this whole funding? Because we are losing so much. There is loss of indigenous biodiversity. Definitely local seeds or indigenous seeds are disappearing. You have export losses. Look at Burkina Faso. Cotton collapsed, right? Cotton collapsed, and we are talking about the pride of Burkina Faso. And this is definitely accounting to loss of hundreds of millions of dollars. And the most important part, we still have hunger issues. We still have hunger issues in Africa, despite billions being poured into this modernization of agriculture. And this is why, when Africans hear the phrase genetically modified mosquitoes, let's go back there, because this conversation was definitely about the mosquitoes, they don't just think about malaria. They remember genetically modified maize. They remember what happened to the cotton in Burkina Faso. They remember promises of prosperity that ended in dependency and loss. We have lost control of our indigenous foods. We've lost control of the seeds, our farming methods. Now Africa is highly modernized when it comes to agriculture. So when you say genetically modified, many Africans will hear foreign control. They will hear corporate takeover. They will hear our sovereignty being signed away, gone, never to come back. Gene by gene. Gene by gene, gone. Now, place that fear into something as delicate as an ecosystem. Look at a mosquito. Mosquito is not just a nuisance. It's not just something that comes. No, mosquito is also food for birds, bats, fish, frogs, right? It is part of a web that has existed for millennials, right? Now alter that at the genetic level and then release these altered mosquitoes into the skies. And you're not simply fighting malaria, you are rewriting the script of nature. And Africans will definitely ask, come on, Bill Gates, come on, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, come on, Open Philanthropy. Who gave you that right to rewrite the scripts, or the script of nature? Who gave you that right? And there's another layer, the idea of irreversibility. There are things that you can recall. You can withdraw a vaccine here and there. But once you have genetically modified species in the wild, you definitely cannot call them back. You cannot lock them up again and say, come on, mosquitoes, come back, come back, come back. No. You cannot just press undo on your DNA edits and say, nah, this causes no risk. And we know this because history has taught us Africans to be cautious. Too often, it's Africans that carry the scars of experiments gone wrong, because malaria is not just an African problem, but it's here where experiments are done. And when these things go wrong, they go wrong on us. That's why you'll have groups like Coppergen in West Africa shout and say, we will not be your guinea pigs. This is why people like Mariam Bessie from Nigeria say, we do not want to be lab rats for exterminator technology. Keyword, exterminator technology. We do not want to be lab rats. In our eyes, gene modification is not a neutral act of science or nature. It is power, it is control. And when outsiders bring that power into Africa, Africans know it will not live without extracting something in return. No, we know when that mosquito bites me, why is it biting me? We know definitely it will have to do something to my body. So when these mosquitoes were released in Burkina Faso, the question was not just scientific. If Africa accepts genetically modified mosquitoes today, what stops genetically modified humans tomorrow, right? What stops genetically modified populations, genetically modified reproduction, genetically modified destinies, genetically modified, this and that? What stops? And here's the twist, because those mosquitoes were not smuggled in Burkina Faso. They were not illegal. They were fully approved by Burkina Faso's own National Biosafety Agency, by its own Environmental Assessment Agency, and even by its National Ethics Committee for Health Research. So we cannot say Burkina Faso did not know what was going on. You had communities who are now saying maybe the interpretation was not clear, but they presented communities and said, you know what, these communities were told this science was safe, that consent had been secured, and that this was Africa's chance to lead the fight against malaria. Because just this month alone, before the president called for the destruction of this thing, on August 11th, there was a small batch of male bias mosquitoes that was definitely engineered to produce mostly males, since again we said only females bite. But this small batch was quietly released in Burkina Faso's skies. Scientists said, you know, this was just a pilot, not a gene drive. And definitely billions of Bill Gates dollars had already been spent building labs, training researchers, and convincing villagers this is safe. But you wonder why less than a week later, Traoré's government intervened, and in just one stroke, they reversed years of permits. They stopped one of the world's most expensive malaria experiments and told the world, Burkina Faso will not be a testing ground for foreign science. Don't you think something went wrong? I mean, from 11th August to around 18th August, when that batch was released, don't you think something went wrong? Because this wasn't some backyard experiment. It was one of the most expensive malaria projects ever attempted on African soil. Target Malaria has been funded with over $170 million US since 2005. $155 million from the Gates Foundation alone, or thereabout, and $17 million from open philanthropy. Tens of millions went into Burkina Faso alone. As I said, these people built high security labs. They trained scientists, and they hosted their endless community engagement meetings, right? But Burkina Faso was supposed to be the showcase, the first African country to prove this could work. But here you are. They said, you know what? Nah, we don't want this. Destroy and stop everything. Something definitely went wrong, and I have a feeling as time goes by, we will know what went wrong. And I hope you guys, if you watch this and you have an idea, then maybe you can tell us on the comment section what you think went wrong. But as if the mosquito story is not enough for us this week, there's another storm that has been erupting. And that's the contraceptive controversy. You've seen a couple of headlines, say 8-year contraceptives for African girls. Also rumors that Namibia's president has rejected Gates' population control plan. You've seen posts on social media claiming that a new birth control device is being secretly tested on African children. You can rest because that's just a rumor. The truth is, the 8 years in that whole contraceptive plan refers to the duration, not age. That means the number of years that contraceptive can stay in your body. And this is not new. You have devices like Mirena that have existed for years. They've been approved for up to 8-year use, right? So what Gates Foundation is doing is funding access programs, making them cheaper and more available in Africa. We are done with that whole Namibia rejection story. Please make sure that is fake. It was fact-checked by Reuters and also Africa Check. They proved that no statement was ever made, right? But here's the point. Facts alone don't erase memory, and Africa's memory on reproductive control is long, painful, and unhealed. We remember the colonial programs where women were targeted for sterilization without consent, often under the pretense of modernizing, native populations. We remember apartheid South Africa. We talked about it just the other day, where Black women were pressured into using Depo-Provera injections, not as a choice, but as a tool of state control. You remember the controversy in Kenya, we talked about it, where Catholic doctors accused World Health Organization and the government of using tetanus vaccine laced with hormones that could sterilize women. We remember. So we remember all these things. And whether the details of this whole 8-year contraceptive was true or not, the damage is already done. Trust has been shattered. Every time now African women hear about contraceptives, they don't trust it. They remember the ideology that has often shadowed foreign aid, that Africa's greatest problem is not poverty, not corruption, not what is happening to Shah right now, not exploitation, but fertility. Too many babies, too many mouths, too many Africans, right? When they frame this whole population control as the solution, Africans will definitely see through the BS and their language. It's not about saving us, it's about limiting us. So when you have a story breaking out of an 8-year contraceptive, obviously this is not just a headline. It activates that collective memory. It whispers, here we go again. Another foreign project deciding how many children African women should have, how many Africans should be born. So when the name Bill Gates is attached to it, the suspicion only grows deeper, because this is the man funding genetically modified mosquitoes, vaccines, contraceptives, all technologies linked directly or indirectly to reproduction and population growth. And definitely Africans remember this man's statement about vaccines reducing population growth. In 2010, I believe it was in a TED Talk, where he said that. But he insisted, he meant healthier children led to smaller families. That is what he says he insisted. But Africans will hear something else. A billionaire who is casually talking about population and reducing Africans. So the outrage over the contraceptive story is not just about the science, it's about memory. It's about history speaking louder than the present. It's about generation of Africans saying, we've seen this pattern before. This is not new, we've seen this pattern before. Right? This is why genetically modified mosquitoes and long-acting contraceptives end up in the same conversation, because both touch the most intimate forms of life. Who lives, who dies, who reproduces, who doesn't. Both are funded by the same global foundations. Both arrive in Africa first. No, these ones will not arrive in Los Angeles. They will not arrive in London. The tests arrive in Africa first, and both carry the heavy shadow of a history where Africa's bodies were never fully protected, never fully respected, never fully sovereign. We talk about us being sovereign beings, but are we? And this is why, even when fact checkers like Reuters or African Check expose the rumors as false, Africans will remain skeptical, because facts can clean a headline, but they cannot clean history. When they are doing that fact checking, they are not reminding people this might have been the reason why majority of Africans were skeptical. And this is why they internalized this as this, because they remember what happened to them. That whole contraceptive controversy was more than just a rumor. It was a mirror that is held up to Africa's collective memory. It reminds us that reproductive freedom in Africa has always been fragile, always contested, always at risk of being stolen in the name of progress. And it was a warning. Sovereignty is not only about borders or resources or elections. It's about the womb. It's about the right of a people to decide their future without outsiders pressing a finger on the scale. When Africans push back against these projects, it's not ignorance. Someone might watch this and they'll be like, are you ignorant? No. This is wisdom born from scars. This is memory speaking. It's us saying we will not allow history to repeat itself. No matter how advanced the science, no matter how sweet the promises, we will not allow that to happen. And so when you hear people celebrating because of the destruction of these genetically modified mosquitoes in Burkina Faso, you have to ask yourself, why is it that Africans don't appreciate your efforts any longer? Why is it that Africans don't appreciate these efforts? Why is it that people know you as a tech guru, but all you do is pay keen interest to GMOs and contraceptives? You know, I had a guest on the platform one day and he asked me, Lynn, what is this guy known for? Okay, he's known for tech. So why is it that they are not using the same speed to help Africans develop tech-wise? Why is it that all they concentrate with is our bodies and our foods? Why is it that the news of how majority of these genetically modified practices have backfired don't make headlines? Because if you have people conducting research and saying this has not been helpful in the 13 countries that you've been in, but you have Africans losing touch of their own indigenous seeds, their own farming methods, then why is it that such things don't make headlines? But you want us to celebrate your 8-year contraceptives. You want us to celebrate your target malaria project. But then when these things backfire, you will never hear them. Even on international or national media, mainstream media, you will not hear of how these things are backfiring. No one will tell you that cotton in Burkina Faso is messed up and trace you to the source. And the source is GMOs practices, right? No one wants to have this conversation. So I don't know what your thoughts are on today's conversation. When you hear that the government of Burkina Faso has suspended and dismantled this whole target malaria project, how do you internalize that? When you see Africans now talking about contraceptives and saying, nah, I don't care whether it's going to help me or not. Nah, this is not working for us as Africans. How do you internalize that? I would love to hear your thoughts on the comment section. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for the feedback you've given us on our last video. That was some really beautiful feedback on our video of how they secretly stop Black women from reproducing. You know, we talked about our stolen wombs, and we also paid tribute to Fanilu Hama. You guys, you really came through, and I really do appreciate your comments. And I love the community that we are building here. Guys, we can come here and we can talk about clout. We can talk about, you know, what is happening right now. But if we don't talk about things that are really impacting us, matters, body, food, and even our education systems, trust you me, this conversation might not get the views it deserves, because once again, platforms like YouTube will promote what they deem to be fast, you know. They don't promote education content as much as they promote clout, and that's a fact. But I want you to share these videos to the people who might not get a chance to see them recommended on their platforms or their homepage on YouTube. Share this link and let us continue enlightening one person, one conversation at a time. I have so many recommendations from you guys, and I hope that we can be able to collectively have these conversations together. Maybe a comment from Rope that said, from our previous video, Rope said, Lynn, food is power. Please do more about food security. All the pesticides and herbicides that are being used in Kenya have been banned in the US because they cause cancer. They are being used in abundance by even small farmers in the village. There is zero regulation of safe doses or the amount, no oversight whatsoever. Tomatoes are sprayed today, tomorrow they're in the market, and we wonder where all the cancer is coming from. So I love that you guys are recommending, and you are definitely interacting with these conversations. But let me know. I know we've never really looked deep at malaria. I know it's definitely, we all hate those mosquitoes, but we have to be able to take a look at the projects that are coming up in the name of fighting malaria, and how does this affect us, even our bodies, when we come into contact with these mosquitoes. What is happening in our bodies? That is the bigger question that majority of us need to ask ourselves. But as I said, appreciate your feedback on our last videos. You'll see more of this. Honestly, I don't feel like I want to do anything else. I feel like I just want to wake up every day and come here and enlighten us and have conversations with each other. So you will definitely see more of these conversations. But I also want to say thank you to our partners who always come through to partner with us on these conversations. So in case you are thinking of investing in a piece of land, you know who our partners are, Hekalu Properties. Guys, by now you've seen the amazing projects at Konza City. The first one is already sold out. We are definitely almost selling out this second project, so check it out. And I love that Alfred and the whole team pay key attention to the value adds. They make sure you guys, you have the borehole, water is right there, the roads are well done, the title deeds are right there. I don't want anyone coming and saying, Lynn, I did not get my title deed. The title deeds are right there, and they also have a payment plan that you can consider. There's electricity closer to Mombasa Road. It's definitely inside the Konza Technopolis buffer zone, which means you guys, there are a lot of opportunities that you can definitely take up in that place. So check them out and call them, the numbers on your screen, and ask them about their payment plan. But in case you're also watching this from diaspora and you want to send money back home to your loved ones, then consider using Tap Send. Those have been our amazing partners for almost 3 years now, and I love that they have great rates for you. Very fast, they make sure the money gets to your loved ones at home. And consider using my promo code Lynn, so you can be able to get there's a a bonus there for you, ama a cashback if you use my promo code Lynn on the figures appearing on your screen right now. As I said, recommend on the comment section what other shows you would love us to have, what other topics can we be able to have together, and I look forward to having more of these episodes before we can wind up our year. All right, my name is Lynn Ngugi. Thank you to the amazing team that gets to put this work together, and hopefully I catch you tomorrow with another topic that I know you guys will definitely be shocked at. Okay, bye bye.